Hi, this is Teacher Molly, and I'm finally going to be reading you the next chapter of Bruce Coville's My Teacher is an Alien. We're on Chapter 6. It's called Drafting Peter. I sat here at my desk and stared at the note. What was going on here? Was Broxholm playing with me? For a moment, the thought that he was actually being a nice guy crossed my mind. I brushed it away. Nice guys don't kidnap sixth graders and drag them into outer space. I decided it was more likely he was just sending me a message. I've got your number, kid. Don't mess with me. I was so wrapped up in trying to figure out what was going on that I could barely concentrate on my work. Most of the time, I just sat and stared at Broxholm's face, trying to figure out how the mask was attached. When I started to wonder if there was any way I could pull it off, my imagination began cooking up a horrifying scene. In this daydream, I saw myself grab Broxholm's ears and begin pulling on them, trying to unmask him. Only the mask wouldn't come off, so I pulled harder. Suddenly, his face began to stretch and twist all out of shape, but still the mask wouldn't come off. It was gross. Stop it, I told my brain firmly. The vision kept coming back. Sometimes I wonder about my brain. I mean, it seems to have a mind of its own. If it was really my brain, you'd think I would have a little more control over it, wouldn't you? When you get right down to it, brains are pretty weird, but not as weird as having an alien for a teacher. By the middle of the morning, I was beginning to wonder if this whole alien business had been a bad dream. It seemed too impossible to believe, but I knew I hadn't been dreaming. It was real. My teacher was an alien. I couldn't wait to get Peter aside so I could talk to him. When recess came, I tried to act calm as I wandered over to the wall where Peter usually sat to read. He was sitting on the ground, cross-legged, clutching a book called A Princess of Mars in his skinny hands. I slid down the wall and sat beside him. He acted as if he didn't notice me, or maybe he really didn't. He was one of those kids who could get so wrapped up in a book, it would take a bomb to break his attention. I hated to interrupt him. Peter always seemed a little unhappy to me, like he understood that he just didn't fit in with the rest of us. The only thing I knew that made him happy was reading science fiction. He always had a book hidden behind his school book. The neat thing was, it didn't make any difference because he was so bright that whenever the teacher asked him a question, he always knew the answer. I could never figure out why they wouldn't just leave him alone and let him read. But that's the way school is, I guess. So, what's going on? I said. What a stupid line. I'm glad I'm a girl, because when I get older, the guys are going to have to come up with the line when they want to start a conversation. Now there's one job I'll be glad to let them have. Peter lifted his nose out of the book and looked at me as if I were the alien. He blinked, and I realized he was trying to come back to the real world. I felt bad for interrupting him. In class, he had to read with one eye on the teacher. Out here, he probably planned on shutting everything out for a while. I hesitated for a moment. How was I going to say this? Finally, I decided to jump right in. I need your help, I said. Peter looked surprised. For what? He asked. I realized I hadn't jumped in after all. The biggie was still to come. Promise you won't laugh at me? I asked. Peter shrugged. Sure, I promise. All right, listen. I know you're not going to believe this, but I found out something awful yesterday. Mr. Smith is an alien. He's come here to kidnap a bunch of kids and take them back to outer space. I held my breath to see what Peter would say. I thought he might laugh or tell me to get lost or, and this thought really scared me, shout it out to everyone else. To my astonishment, he didn't do any of those things. He just looked as if he were going to cry. What's the matter? I asked. You should know, he said. He sniffed and wiped the back of his hand across his nose. What was going on here? I had a sudden thought that maybe he was an alien too. That was stupid, of course, but I had aliens on the brain, and I couldn't figure out what else it might be. I don't know, I said. Honest, I don't. He looked at me and his eyes were so sad that they made me want to cry too. I always thought you were the one kid in this class who was on my side, he said. Like that time you tried to stop Duncan when he was beating me up. I expect everyone else to tease me. I just never thought you would do it. Now it was my turn to be mad. I'm not teasing, I yelled. Then I lowered my voice. I'm not teasing, I hissed. I'm serious. Peter stared at me. Is this some kind of a game? He asked. I hesitated. If I told him the truth, he probably wouldn't believe me. If I told him it was a game, he might at least help me think things through. What a fix. The only way I could get him to believe me was to lie to him. Yeah, I said. I thought you were the one guy in this class with enough imagination to play. But now you've ruined it. No, said Peter. No, we can still play. Just pretend you had to tell me it was a game to get me to believe you. My head was starting to spin. Peter was using my reason for lying as a reason to pretend that what he believed was a game for real. Or something like that. This was getting too complicated for me. This is going to be one of those weeks, I thought. The only person I can count on for help stopping an alien invasion thinks the whole thing is a game. Well, as my grandmother always says, you make do with what you've got. And Peter was what I had. I decided to stop worrying about who was believing what and just tell him what had happened. Well, I said when I was done, what do you think we should do? Peter stared at the sky for a minute. He rubbed his chin as if he was thinking really hard. Then he gave me his answer. We've got no choice, he said. We'll have to break into Broxholm's house to look for evidence. The end, and I'll be reading chapter 7 soon. Thanks for watching. Remember to click the like button and hit subscribe. Thank you.